Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here at my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea. It's an honor and a privilege to have you guys joining me here today. Whole bunch of stuff to talk about today. But before we get to any of that, let's go right off the top talking about this. First of all, just a couple years ago, things were looking pretty grim for Sony. I mean, Soda Studios was in trouble, all this kind of stuff. Then all of a sudden, they changed leadership. They get this new CEO named Kenichiro Yoshida. He comes in, a whole new commitment, not just to Sony as a whole, but also to their film franchises and their movie studio side of their business. And now he just had a big release saying this, that the profitability of Sony's film division has just nearly doubled. The initial projections were that they were going to have a year-over-year profitability of about $375, $378 million annually. They said over the next 3 years, they're now projecting those profits to go up nearly double, like I said, to over $600 million per year. Does that mean Sony is now the big player in the game in movie studios? No, clearly not. But it is funny how far a company, when getting under the right leadership and the right direction, how far they can go from things looking bleak and grim to all of a sudden looking like, hey, maybe things are looking better and maybe things are looking brighter once you have new leadership in place. So good for Sony. Let's hope they have good things in the front of them as well. Also right here off the top, this just kind of came out in the recent half day or so. Actor Zach Levi, who's of course playing Shazam. Now, we all saw those initial leaked set pictures of Shazam, and the costume looked ridiculous. His big puffy, looks like he's just wearing pillows underneath his costume, and it looked ridiculous. But one of the things I kept saying to everybody is, don't read too much into these leaked set photos, because that's probably not what the actual end product is going to look like. Well, Zach Levi got, I believe, on his Instagram account and kind of put out an image of the first official looking image of the Shazam costume. And as you can see, it looks much more in line now with what modern traditional superhero costumes are looking like. They've got the texture on them. It looks a lot slimmer than it did in those leaked set pictures. This costume actually looks pretty damn good. This is a pretty good looking costume and much better than what we've seen before. And once again, this just all goes back to the same thing that we were saying before. Be very careful about getting too worked up over these leaked set photos, because we always get them without context, and it's 99% of the time, 95% of the time, isn't what it appears to be. So we've got to wait until we get an official look at things. Yes, we can speculate about these leaked pictures, but most of the times it ends up being something totally different. Like, let's take a look at this again. This actually looks pretty good. This ain't a bad looking costume. And of course, what he's doing, obviously he's supposed to be a young kid in the body of a man with the powers of the gods. So he's sitting there sipping his drink. That's pretty cool too. But just focus on the costume itself. And I think the costume itself looks pretty damn good. Completely night and day difference from the looks at the Shazam costume we got from those leaked set photos. Again, another example that we should never read too much into these leaked set photos stuff. All right, guys, with that off the top stuff out of the way, let's get into today's movie news feed. First up, in the shadow of the massive success Marvel is enjoying with Avengers Infinity War, they haven't stopped working to relish in the glory, as it has just been reported that actor Jake Gyllenhaal is currently in negotiations with Sony to appear in the next Spider-Man movie as the classic villain Mysterio. Gyllenhaal has come close on a number of occasions to being in a comic book movie, from Spider-Man to Batman on a couple of occasions too. From Slash Film, Mysterio is one of the weirder villains in the Spider-Man universe. The real identity of Mysterio is Quentin Beck, a special effects expert and stuntman who uses his skills to create elaborate illusions that make it appear as if he has superpowers. He uses these skills to commit crimes, create trouble for Spider-Man, and just in general be a pain in the ass. A lot of people acknowledge that Jake Gyllenhaal is easily in the top 10 best actors working today, maybe even in the top 5, and should probably have some hardware in his mantle by this point. So if Sony and Marvel are able to bring him into a film like this, that is just spectacular. Now, unfortunately, this story has created this really weird and honestly fake narrative out there that, oh my God, why would Jake Gyllenhaal choose Marvel over DC or something like that? And it's just not the case. You can't compare the role that he was talking about with maybe taking over Batman with playing a role like Mysterio. They are two completely different sets of circumstances. I don't think this is a matter of, Jake Gyllenhaal, if he signs on to be in this movie, because remember, the reports right now are only that he's in talks. But if he does sign up for it, it's not a matter of choosing, Marvel over DC. These are two totally different types of roles. One role is a one-shot villain that he just gets to go into, play that villain, create a memorable villain, and then move on to his next project. The other, the Batman role, would have been signing on for a multiple film deal, which might be something he doesn't want to do, and having to carry that franchise maybe for years to come. We all know that Joaquin Phoenix, that's the main reason he walked away from Doctor Strange, because he didn't want to do that. So I see this really more as a case of if he does sign on for Mysterio, and remember, he's not officially signed on yet, at least as of when we're doing this show, but rather just an idea that this is the type of character, a one-shot movie, go in there, do a great job with it, come back out. That's totally understandable. And once again, if they can get a guy on the talent level of Jake Gyllenhaal, that just makes things even better. Next up, speaking of casting in Spider-Man Homecoming 2, it looks like another bad guy is coming back. According to reports, Michael Keaton, who played the Vulture in the first Homecoming movie, is set to come back for the sequel. Some are speculating that this could indicate the formation of the Sinister Six. Coming Soon points out that the post-credit scene of the first Homecoming movie saw Michael Keaton's Adrian Toomes in prison being confronted by a scarred Mac Gargan, who says he knows some boys on the outside who would love to meet, i.e. kill, Spider-Man. However, Michael Keaton's character refuses to give up Peter Parker's identity, likely indicating that he's grateful to the web crawler, or possibly that he wants to kill Spider-Man himself. Now, of course, Gargan is the alter ego of another one of Spider-Man's comic book nemesises, the Scorpion, another occasional member of the aforementioned Sinister Six. Nemesi? Name that movie reference. Anyway, getting Michael Keaton to come back would be fantastic. He, of course, was one of the standout things in Spider-Man Homecoming. Spider-Man Homecoming worked on so many different levels, especially when you consider that this was the second reboot in a short number of years of this character, and yet they really came and knocked it out of the park. Marvel had up until that point been kind of traditionally a little bit weak with their villains. Michael Keaton comes in, gives us a very memorable villain, a super performance. Now, him coming back, my interpretation of the ending and the post-credit scene of Spider-Man Homecoming was that Michael Keaton likes Peter Parker, that he now feels like he kind of owes the kid. He kind of feels like he's on his side now, you know what I'm saying? However, what some people are speculating that maybe this points towards the formation of the Sinister Six. Maybe he is a little darker inside. Maybe he does still want to kill Spider-Man. And maybe getting the Scorpion introduced in that post-credit scene. Maybe now that they're bringing in Mysterio, now you've already got the Vulture. Maybe they start hinting at the beginning of a Sinister Six. I'm not sure. Personally, I kind of hope they don't. I'm not really on board with the Sinister Six storyline at this point for this particular Spider-Man, especially at this point in his development. But anything to bring back Michael Keaton is a great idea to me, so I love this news. Next up, we've known for some time that Warner Brothers was working on another version of the classic Jungle Book story, this one called Mowgli, and that it is being directed by motion capture master Andy Serkis. Now, the first actual trailer for the film has arrived, along with a feature clip showing Andy Serkis explaining the differences between this iteration of a Jungle Book and previous ones we've seen on the screen before. The main point of emphasis is that this version will be much truer to the original material, darker material, and that there will be no singing and dancing animals this time around. The clip highlights the incredible cast lending their voices, including Christian Bale as Bagheera, Benedict Cumberbatch as Shere Khan, and Cate Blanchett as Kaa, with Andy Serkis himself doing the motion capture and voice for the great bear, Baloo. I am really of two different minds on this trailer. In the first place, forget that there's another Jungle Book movie, forget all that other stuff, and just take the trailer at face value. It's a really good trailer. It's a solid trailer. It looks good. It sounds good. It looks like the kind of movie I want to watch. It looks like Andy Serkis has done a pretty good job here. And look, I am a big fan of Andy Serkis. I've met the dude on a couple of occasions. I'm a huge fan of what he did with Gollum and what he did with Caesar and what he did with King Kong and on and on and on and on. Love the dude. And this movie looks pretty solid. On the other hand, however, and maybe this is completely unfair, but it just is what it is. I'm just being honest with you guys. Watching the trailer, I could not get over that hump of, I feel like I just watched this movie, obviously talking about the Jon Favreau Jungle Book film. And again, maybe that's completely unfair that I feel that way. It is nonetheless how I feel. So on the one hand, the trailer looks really solid. It looks exciting. I'm anxious to see it. But on the other hand, I couldn't shake this. I've kind of already just watched this movie just a little while ago. And that's unfortunately, hopefully, moving forward with the marketing, they really do find good ways to differentiate for the audience the Jon Favreau version, which was fantastic, and this Andy Serkis version, which promises to be equally, if not more fantastic. Here's hoping, because if they can't get past that, and if a lot of people feel the same way I do, that feels like we've already kind of seen this movie, that could hurt it on its opening weekend. Here's hoping the marketing can get creative and overcome that. Next up, the upcoming John Wick 3 is already one of the most hotly anticipated films of 2019 for a lot of film fans, and they all just got another reason to be excited. According to reports, Academy Award-winning actress Halle Berry has signed on to co-star in John Wick 3. On top of Halle Berry, the film has also added other notable names, such as fellow Academy Award-winning actress Anjelica Huston, as well as Orange is the New Black actress Asia Kate Dillon. From CinemaBlend, we don't know much at this point about Berry's character other than that she will be named Sophia and that she reportedly won't be the film's villain, suggesting that she could be an ally for John Wick and potentially even a new love interest. The John Wick franchise is on an upswing, as the first film made $88 million on just a $20 million budget, and the second film nearly doubled that, making over $171 million at the box office. John Wick Chapter 3 is set to hit theaters. Get it? I said hit. Get it? On May 17th, 2019. I absolutely adore the John Wick franchise. Now, I'm one of these guys. I know a number of people like the second one even better than the first one. I'm not one of those people. I actually prefer the first one over the second one, but that doesn't mean I thought it was a huge step down in quality. I still ate up the second one. I loved it, and I'm very curious to see where they go with it. Obviously, they left it on a bit of a cliffhanger with everybody's out to kill this dude now. Look, let's talk about the actual news here. First of all, you've added a Hollywood legend in Anjelica Huston. Always a good thing. I've never seen Orange is the New Black, so I really can't comment on Dillon's casting. But the crown jewel of this whole announcement to me is clearly the addition of Halle Berry. Yes, another Academy Award-winning actress. She's done action-type films before. She's done these types of movies before. And she's just terrific. Yes, she's also a Razzie winner, but she handled that with such grace. She actually showed up to accept her Razzie, which I just thought was amazing of her. Anyway, this lady is fantastic. She's got huge talent. She's incredibly beautiful. She can do these types of films. I think she's going to fit in with John Wick 3 just beautifully. So I'm really excited about this announcement. I was already excited for John Wick 3. This just takes it up another notch. And finally, for those of you who were as devastated as I was about the cancellation of one of the best shows on TV, Lucifer, there is some mildly good news. Fox has announced that on May 28th, they will air 2 bonus episodes of the show back to back. From coming soon, the 2 episodes titled Boo Normal and Once Upon a Time were produced during the show's 3rd season but did not air. Starting with Boo Normal at 8 p.m., the first hour finds Lucifer, played by Tom Ellis, and the team investigating the murder of a child psychiatrist as Ella thinks about a big childhood secret that she's been hiding. Then, in Once Upon a Time, after Lucifer's mom creates an alternate dimension, Lucifer now lives in a world where he not only has never met Chloe, but is granted the freedom of choice. It's still kind of hard for me to talk about the cancellation of Lucifer. I love this show, and I don't watch a hell of a lot of TV. And this was one of those shows that I didn't even bother watching it at first because, frankly, it looks kind of lame, which is maybe why a lot of you guys never checked it out. But then I started watching it one day when I had nothing else to watch, and I fell in love with it. Not my favorite show on TV, but Tom Ellis's Lucifer is my favorite character on TV. I love this guy. The charm, the charisma, the wit, the humor, everything about, and the mythology behind the devil himself. It's just really great. I love the supporting cast around him. It's wonderful. And I am still completely baffled why Fox would cancel this show, which is a superior show, when the numbers weren't all that bad, and the numbers, ratings-wise, were even better than other shows that they gave extensions to. Like Gotham gets another season when it didn't draw as good numbers as Lucifer did. I still don't understand that, especially when Lucifer is a better show. Anyway, at least it's getting these 2 bonus episodes. I'm hoping that them airing these 2 bonus episodes is a little bit of a foreshadowing that maybe, just maybe, Fox thinks they might be able to hand off this franchise to another network that wants to pick it up, and maybe they're airing these episodes kind of as a showcase. Who knows? I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that Lucifer gets picked up by Hulu or Netflix or NBC or whoever else, because I want to see a season 4. And that will do it for today's installment of the Movie News Feed. And now you are all caught up to date on everything going on in the world of movie news. Somebody pick up Lucifer. Just please, somebody pick up Lucifer. Okay, guys, let's move on now to the main topics today. And of course, the main topics are submitted by you guys. How do you email in a topic or a question for the John Campea Show? It's simple. Just email me anytime at john@thejohncampeashow.com. Put that word topic in the subject line and keep the emails, guys, to 90 words or less. All right, let's get things rolling here with the first question. And the first question today comes to us from Matt Whitaker, who writes, "Hey, John, love the show." Thank you so much, Matt. With Deadpool's box office officially coming in lower than the tracking, and many fans concerned that Deadpool would cut into Infinity War's box office chances at the $2 billion mark, did we have it wrong and it be the other way around? Did Infinity War actually affect Deadpool's opening weekend? Thanks and keep up the good work. Well, whenever you have 2 big films in the theaters at the same time, they will have an effect on each other. You know, what is the every action has an equal and an opposite reaction. So one will affect the other, but then that one will also affect the first one. Like they will have an effect on each other, no doubt. But here's the reality. Let's keep things in perspective here. When the projection numbers of 150 million, that was the top end. The low end was 100 million, was the projections for the opening weekend of Deadpool. There were wildly different projections. There was projections of 100 million, projections of 150 million. So it comes out, ironically enough, right down the middle at 125 million. Let's keep this in context. With some people going, oh, that's so disappointing. It is the second biggest opening weekend in history for an R-rated film. The second biggest opening weekend in film history for an R-rated film. And that's Deadpool 2. Second only to the first Deadpool movie, which made $7 million more dollars. I think the first one made like 132 million. Did Avengers Infinity War have a big impact on it? No, not a big impact. If Avengers Infinity War had made like $65 million this weekend, that would have been a significant impact on Deadpool. However, it only made like 25, 26, 27, 28 million dollars, something like that. So it's not like Avengers Infinity War was gobbling up all the box office. It only made about 25 plus million dollars. So it's really not all that significant, which is totally fine considering it's in its like 4th or 5th weekend at this point. So it's totally fine. Did that have an impact on Deadpool 2's box office? Sure, it had an impact. Did it have a significant impact? No. And you know what? I was watching another commentator the other day, and they brought up something that I hadn't even considered before, which was this. He said, you know, the first time I saw the first Deadpool movie, there was like 8, 9, 10 families in the movie with kids. Even though it's rated R, it was marketed to look like a really fun comic book movie, and a lot of them then realized, oh my God, this movie is not for my children. He said, when I saw Deadpool 2, there was one family with kids in the theater. So they were speculating that one of the differences between the first 2 Deadpool movies was in the first Deadpool movie, a lot of people thought it was okay to just go and bring their kids with them to go see it because it's a colorful comic book movie. Those people learned a lesson and did not come back and bring their families with them the second time around. Whichever the case is, keep the whole thing in context. The movie made $125 million on its opening weekend, being the second biggest R-rated film opening of all time. More than any other film in history that was rated R, it had the second most, only behind the other Deadpool movie. So, was there an effect? Yes. Was this a significant effect? Nah, I don't think so. All right, next up. This one comes to us from Jayden Hallett, and Jayden Hallett writes, "Hey John, big fan from Australia." Well, thank you so much, Jayden. "What are your thoughts on the rumors that the Lord of the Rings show being about a young Aragon? I get the same vibe I get when young Solo could be cool, but the universe is such a massive place, it feels like it's making Middle-earth smaller versus richer." Well, here's the thing. First of all, we don't know that Strider is going to be the focus of the show. There are some rumors going around that that would be it. But if that is the case, it's not that bad of an idea. I almost feel like you do need some kind of anchor point for a new show. Now, you can't compare Middle-earth with the Star Wars universe. Middle-earth is one world. Star Wars is tens of thousands of worlds spread across thousands of galaxies, spread across thousands of years. Middle-earth is a different thing. That's a different thing altogether. If they were to base it around one anchor point character, the character of Strider is not a bad one to do. But again, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. We don't know that this is happening for sure. This is not a fact. This is something that's being whispered and rumored out, and maybe it is. But if they do go that way, is it the way I would do it? No, probably not. But is it all that bad of an idea? No, probably not all that bad of an idea either. And we'll just have to see. And again, I just don't think you can do the same comparison of Middle-earth to Star Wars when one is one world, one is tens of thousands of worlds spread across galaxies. So I think it's a little bit of a different thing. All right, final email question of the day. And the final email question today comes to us from Brian Knight. And Brian Knight writes, "It's been over 50 years since we've had movies with an intermission. Would you go see a 3-hour movie from your favorite franchises, example Star Wars, MCU, or DC, if there was a 10 to 15 minute intermission and the price was, say, 50% more? Example, a $15 movie price is raised to $22.50. Would the price difference solve the movie studio's problems of showing per screen?" Well, okay, let's look at it this way. On the one hand, I don't mind the idea of an intermission because while it doesn't happen to me often, I don't have a weak bladder, but maybe one out of every 3 or 4 movies, I find that at some point I got to get up and run to the bathroom. A lot of people I know have to go like every time, and you're sitting in the theater and you're constantly having to see people get up and run to the bathroom. The idea of an intermission where you get 5 minutes, you can take a quick bathroom break, top up your soda, grab another bag of M&Ms if that's your candy of choice. All that. There is something appealing about the idea. There is, particularly if you're getting into movies that are 3 hours plus long. That even becomes more appealing. However, let's not give movie theaters any more excuses for raising their prices. Because right now, movie theaters and the movie studios are so short-sighted. All they're thinking about is how can we make a couple of extra bucks right now, and not thinking about, oh, but doing that could hurt us long term. They just don't think that way. They're just thinking short term. How can we make a few extra bucks right now? And they're doing really stupid things as a result. So, anything that, don't give them the idea that, hey, if a movie's over 3 hours, we charge you an extra $4 surcharge. Don't even joke about that. Because while that would make up for fewer screenings because of the runtime, it would also cut down the amount of people that go see it. Because there are some movies I'll go watch for $15, but I won't go watch them for $22.50. You know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of people will be in the same boat as me. So while on one hand, the idea, it's a romantic idea, an intermission for movies that are over 2.5 hours long, you get a 5-10 minute intermission. However, it just doesn't practically work out. It already takes a long movie, stretches it out even more, which means even fewer screenings for the film, which doesn't make the theater owners happy because the theater owners make their money by more people coming into the theater. Studios make their money by more people buying tickets, and the fewer screenings you can do, it's just kind of counterproductive. I would be kind of happy if they did it, but I just don't see them ever doing it because I just don't think it's practical financially for them to figure out a way to do it, but I'd be happy. All right, with all that out of the way, we've got some time for some live questions. You guys have already started sending them in. By the way, guys, I want to encourage you. First of all, you can send in a live question about anything you want. But moving forward, especially on the John Campea Show, open mic is different. Send in a question about anything you want. But on the John Campea Show, I'd really love it if you guys started sending in comments and questions and observations about the stories that we're talking about today. So if you've got a comment about the Jake Gyllenhaal and Spider-Man thing, you got a comment about Halle Berry joining John Wick, you got a comment, observation, or question about the new Shazam costume, that's the kind of stuff I'd love to take live questions for here on the John Campea Show. So totally fine, you can send in anything you want, but I encourage you to focus on things that we're actually talking about and were topics on today's show. So with that out of the way, let's dive into it. The first one comes from Peter Pan, who says, "Bangarang." I still don't get people who don't like Hook. I acknowledge and recognize there are a lot of people who do not like that Peter Pan film Hook. I get it. I understand. That's fine. All film's subjective. But I just don't understand because I think that movie is delightful. Bangarang indeed. Murray writes, "It's amazing how far the Golden Knights have come." I'm telling you, they've got to make a movie out of this. I've been saying this the last few days. For those of you who don't follow sports or hockey, this is a story that I think anybody can get on to. First of all, the Las Vegas Golden Knights are an expansion team in the NHL. That means this is their first year in existence. Expansion teams are made up of players that other teams threw away. So it's a team of a bunch of rejects. It's a team made up of players the other teams didn't think were worth protecting and kind of thought they were expendable. That's what this whole team is. And this team of throwaways, this team of misfits, this team of players that nobody wanted are going to the Stanley Cup final in their first year of existence. It's an incredible story. You've got to get the film rights to this and make it, because it's an incredible sports story. It's one of the best sports stories of the year, and just an incredible story, period, that somebody's got to make a movie out of it. It's just an incredible thing. Luna Comics writes, what do you think of people boycotting Solo? I mean, I've already spoken about that a number of times. Look, if somebody doesn't like a particular movie and they don't want to go see it, that's not boycotting. You just don't want to go see it? You don't want to go see it. Nothing wrong with that. The notion of, I don't want to see it, and I want to try to organize to make other people not see it, that seems kind of lame and sad. Tinisflado Mendoza writes, you, my friends, like the Happy Time murder trailer. I don't, so I have to unsubscribe and wish death upon you and my friends. Family, right? Yeah. I mean, it's true. We are living in a pretty toxic environment now of fandom, that it's no longer, oh, you like something I don't like? That's fine. Now it's, wait a second, you don't like something I love? I need to call you an idiot and I need to attack you. It is a sad state of affairs that we live in. Nathan C. writes, between The Incredibles, Alita, Venom, Aquaman, and Ant-Man, how badly can each perform for this to still be the best year in comic book superhero movies? I wouldn't count Alita Battle Angel in that. That's not your traditional comic book movie, so I wouldn't count that in there. I wouldn't even really count The Incredibles, since it's not based on a comic book. I mean, you could throw it in there if you want, but the discussion has been raised about, is this the best year for comic book movies ever? I mean, already we've had 3, and they've been outstanding. We've had Deadpool 2, Avengers Infinity War, and Black Panther, and all 3 of them outstanding. That makes 2018 a candidate, at the very least, for being the best comic book movie year in history. Now, we still have some more to come. We've got Venom. Let's see how good or bad that's going to be. We got Aquaman, hearing some pretty positive stuff coming out of CinemaCon about Aquaman, fingers crossed. We've got Ant-Man. I'm a little bit iffy on the trailer, but then again, I was iffy on the first Ant-Man trailers, and I ended up loving the first Ant-Man. So let's see how that works out. So we still got a few films to go. I think if all 3 of those films are good, like if Venom is good, if Aquaman is good, if Ant-Man is good, not even great, just good, then 2018 can be in a serious discussion about best comic book movie year ever. If 1 or 2 of those are bad, let's say Ant-Man's bad and Venom disappoints, but Aquaman's still good, then I don't think you count 2018 as amongst the best. But if they can all just be good to go along with Black Panther, Infinity War, and Deadpool 2, it'll be in serious contention for best year ever. Really Tired 64 writes, with the success of Deadpool, together with Channing Tatum's flair for comedy, is it possible Gambit might actually be done as a comedy? Well, I have no doubt. And remember, we just talked the other day that Simon Kinberg said, this movie's a lot closer to being shot than we thought. They may actually start shooting the Gambit movie with Channing Tatum at the end of this summer. I mean, which is far further along than any of us thought. Look, I think there's no doubt there will be comedic elements to it, for sure. But you can't just say, well, Fox just had great success with comedy with Deadpool. Yes, but they also had great success with the deeper, heavier drama of Logan. So I have a feeling if they move forward with this Gambit thing, I have a feeling it'll be somewhere down the middle. I think it'll have some deeper elements. I think it'll have some good comedy. At least that's what they'll try to do with it. Whether they'll succeed or fail, we'll have to see. Channing Tatum is a very good comedic actor. We've seen that in 21 Jump Street. He's also turned into a pretty decent dramatic actor as well. So I think he can pull it off. I think if they do it, they're going to go right down the middle. I don't think it'll be all the way comedy. I don't think it'll be all the way Logan, but I think it'll probably be somewhere in the middle, I'm guessing, if they get around to actually doing it. All right, Phil Lee writes, have we seen the last of Jet Li due to his health? I think didn't we just hear that Jet Li is going to be in Mulan? I think we just so have we seen the last of Jet Li? No, because he's going to be in the live action Mulan movie, if I'm not mistaken. Apparently there are people talking about his his health right now just because of some pictures or whatever, I wouldn't worry about it. But like I said, they just announced he's going to be in the new Mulan movie, so I don't think we're probably anywhere close to seeing the end of Jet Li just yet. Game Win Cam writes, in my opinion, Logan is the best film of all time. Thoughts? Well, my thoughts are nowhere near. It is in my top 3 comic book movies of all time. It was my favorite movie of last year. I thought, hands down, Logan was the best film of 2017. But it's not Shawshank Redemption. It's not The Godfather. It's not, Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. It's not Bridge Over the River Kwai. It's not Lawrence of Arabia. I mean, it's really good and in my top 3 favorite films of all time. But hey, to you, it's the best film of all time, and that's all that matters, is that's what it is to you. James Boner writes, sorry guys, had the big jump here. James Bonner writes, Star Trek Discovery is worth the $5.99 a month. Great show. Yeah, we're talking about the Star Trek Discovery, an idea for a show that I bashed on for like a year. I said, this is a terrible idea. This is going to suck, blah, 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 blah. But like in all things, I then give it an honest shot. And I really like it. I really like Star Trek Discovery. And yeah, it's worth the $5 a month for CBS All Access just to watch that show. At least for me. I know a number of my friends who are hardcore Star Trek fans aren't that big fans of it. Fine. For me, it's far better than it has any business being. I thought it was far better than I was expecting, so I've been really enjoying it. Hudson Smith writes, I really hope they use Kraven in the new Spider-Man movies, or he could be Black Panther's foe in the sequels. Don't expect that at all. I believe we've already heard that Sony is looking at using Kraven in their Spider-Man-less Spider-Verse, along with Venom, Silver and Black. They're talking and looking at doing a Kraven movie as well. So you're going to see Kraven on the Sony side of things, not in the MCU. At least that's the last that I heard. So don't expect to see Kraven in the MCU. Javier Belmer writes, John, is that a new camera? Nice crisp image. This is actually an old camera. My much better camera, my Canon 7D, started glitching on me. So I had to put it away till I can either get it fixed or replaced. So I pulled out my old Canon G30 camera to use it. It's actually not as good of a camera, but it does a very good job. It's not for a backup camera. It ain't bad, right? So I'm a big fan of this camera, and it's under. I think you can pick up a Canon G30 for like $700 or $800. They're not completely unreasonable. So if you like the camera, that's the one I'm using right now. Metal Gear Kieran writes, did you manage to catch the Juggernaut? I'm sorry, not going to talk about that. Metal Gear Kieran, have you seen the movie Shot Caller? If so, what did you think? I can't remember the name of the movie off the top of my head. Let me look it up to see if it's something that I know. The one with the dude from Game of Thrones, right? The one-handed dude, Jamie from Game of Thrones, right? No, I didn't watch that. I didn't get around to watching that, which is really unfortunate because who else was in that thing? Hold on a second, let me pull this up. And Lake Bell, John Bernthal's in it. I'm a big fan of Lake Bell, actually. I got a little celebrity crush on Lake Bell. Don't ask me why, but I just do, and I have for a long time. But no, I never did get around to watching it, as a matter of fact. That's when I had my eye on, too, and it totally went off my radar, and I totally forgot all about it. So no, I never did get around to watching it. I got to check it out, though. Thanks for reminding me about it, because I completely forgotten about it. I got a name writes, hello, John. In Deadpool 2, sorry, I'm not going to talk anything that could be potentially spoilers. Let's see. Metal Gear Kieran writes, what's your thoughts on the House That Jack Built trailer? Gives me an American Psycho feeler. Haven't watched the trailer yet, so I can't comment on it. Cameron Wiskovich writes, so Disney/Lucasfilm announced Lando is... First of all, no, they did not. They did not announce that. I honestly don't know what to think, so I'd like to hear your opinion. I'd appreciate it. Well, I talked about this the other day. First of all, stop spreading false information. Lucasfilm and Disney did not announce that Lando was pansexual. Stop that nonsense right now. They did not announce that. What happened was, while being interviewed by somebody, not even Lawrence Kasdan, but Lawrence Kasdan's son, who helped Lawrence on the Han Solo screenplay, was asked, do you think... basically, I'm paraphrasing, but basically the interview asked him, like, do you think that Lando's like bisexual or pansexual? And what this Kasdan kid said was, yeah, to me, he's pansexual because that's always kind of been the case. So That is not Disney announcing that. That is one writer saying that in his head, he is that way. So just stop this hysteria going around that Disney has announced. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. But my position, we talked about this on Open Mic yesterday. If they did, I don't care. It didn't play out in the movie, so there's nothing to get upset about. And even if it did, it's not inconsistent with anything we've seen from his character so far. To say that character is pansexual, watch the movies. Is saying he's pansexual inconsistent with anything we've seen in the movies? No? Then who cares? I don't see what there is to get upset about. What's the problem? And what I said on Open Mic the other day is, if you said he's gay, that's a problem because that's inconsistent with what we've seen in the movies. But they're not saying he's gay. Nobody's saying he's pansexual either, except for this one writer who just says in his own head he kind of sees it that way. But hey, as long as it's not inconsistent with the movies, I don't see there being any rational reason to being upset about it or even think it's even remotely controversial. It clearly is consistent with the character we've seen. Let's see. Next one. Maurice Cook says, John, glad they're making a Shazam movie. I still say they need to call him Captain Marvel just one time in the movie. Nah, that would be too confusing. They stopped calling him Captain Marvel in the comic books for a reason. It's far too confusing. It's just understood now. This character is Shazam. He's been Shazam for years. The Marvel character is Captain Marvel. This is Shazam. That's the way DC has labeled it. That's what they got to do. There's no point in saying that in the movie because all it does is create confusion. King D'Chala writes, and just last two questions of the day. King D'Chala writes, I'm a longtime fan, but you said that Cap would have beaten Tony even if Bucky didn't distract him. Tony had the advantage, and Cap was on the ledge with no shield. Don't see how Cap would have won. Oh, Cap would have won easy. Easy. He was holding back because all he was trying to do was slow Tony down and talk sense into Tony. That's all he was trying to do. He wasn't in a murderous rage. He wasn't like trying to kill the other guy. Cap was just trying to slow him down. That's all he was holding back. Cap was holding back big time in that fight. So yeah, Cap wins that fight easy. Tacky75 writes, Reynolds wanted Evans' cameo as Human Torch in Deadpool 2. I have not heard that, but if that's true, it would have been genius. Last question of the day. Sorry for the Deadpool 2 question. I only asked since I'd seen others mention it previously. No problem. I'm just trying to avoid all the poison. Don't feel bad. I let things slip. You let things slip. We all let things slip. I'm just trying to keep it as spoiler-free as possible, despite my slips. All right, guys, that will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thanks so much for joining me. Listen to me. Don't forget, if you enjoy my programming, do me a favor. Head on over to www.patreon.com/John Campea. Get all the information there about what it means to be a Patreon supporter, how being a Patreon supporter keeps these shows on the air, and what advantages and benefits there are to being a Patreon supporter. Like, I had recently announced I've canceled my Star Wars talk show, but a bunch of my Patreon supporters gave me the idea of, why don't I keep doing the Star Wars show, but just for the Patreon. So my Patreon supporters will be getting the weekly Star Wars talk show. That's not going to be on my YouTube channel. Audio versions of the podcasts that aren't available to anybody else. We've got an exclusive Facebook group. I put up the occasional behind the scenes video. Anyway, check out the Patreon page and maybe see if you want to become a Patreon supporter. If you do, that's great. And if you don't, I'm just glad you're here being a film fan with us. All right, guys, that'll do it for me for today's show. Thanks so much for joining me. Until a little bit later, bye-bye.